Hi there, it's Holy Wednesday, or also known as Spy Wednesday, which we'll get into that in just a minute. But I'm going to share the Holy Week devotion with you today. So far we've had Palm Sunday, Holy Monday, where Jesus cleanses the temple, Holy Tuesday, and now we're here on Holy Wednesday, or Spy Wednesday. And we see this account actually in all four of the Gospels, the reason why it's called Spy Wednesday. And in three of the Gospels, we see Jesus being anointed. And so I'm going to reference Matthew chapter 26, and this is where Jesus is in Bethany and he's at Simon the leper's house. And we know this happens just before the Passover because of the accounts of the Gospels. So we know as he's reclining at the table at Simon the leper's house, a woman comes in, and two of the Gospels identify her as Mary, the sister of Lazarus, who was raised from the dead. And she comes in with a very expensive jar of perfume. She poured it on his head as he was reclining at the table. Now, this is important because you need to know that this is how kings were anointed. They were anointed by this being poured over their heads. Another gospel account tells us that she poured it on his feet and she wiped it with her hair. She's performing a very significant act of worship, but it's also a very symbolic moment as well. But we know that when the disciples saw this, specifically Judas, they were indignant. In fact, in John's gospel, it says Judas was angry and says, "Why this waste? This could have been sold and given to the poor." But Jesus comes to her defense and says, "Why are you bothering this woman? Don't you know what she's done for me? She's preparing my body for my burial." And he goes on to tell them, "You will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me." And we know this upsets Judas, and he turns away. And so he goes and he becomes a spy. And they give him 30 pieces of silver for Judas to set Jesus up to be taken captive by the Pharisees. What I really want to focus on is I think it's interesting that at the moment this symbolic and significant act of worship is literally being poured out on Jesus, at the exact same moment, one of his disciples is getting angry. And one of his disciples is turning away from him. I think that's interesting that at the very same moment, those two very different things are happening. And what I want to point out is it wasn't news to Jesus that Judas was going to betray him. Jesus knew that the whole time, and yet for those 3 years of ministry, he allowed Judas to witness the miracles and listen to his teachings. He allowed Judas to be in charge of the money. And yet, Jesus knew the entire time that Judas would be the one to betray him. So I want to leave you with this. Jesus died for those who betrayed him just as much as he died for those who were worshiping him, who recognized who he was, the Messiah, the promised King, the anointed one. He died for them just the same as he died for those who put the nails through his hands. What a powerful thought, and what an amazing Savior we serve. All right, so I just want to leave you with that today as we prepare our hearts for the next few days, the Last Supper and the Garden of Gethsemane and Good Friday, the crucifixion, Silent Saturday, and then finally Resurrection Sunday. God bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's devotion.